What are some boring topics that you think we shouldn't talk about? Like, what are you tired of talking about in the CRO space?
There's a lot of things that just bores me to death, like attribution.
Why does attribution bore you to death?
I don't know. I feel like no one can agree on anything. And yeah, I feel like it is like, it's ridiculous. I feel like it's not that it bores me. It's, it's interesting. It's like the one thing I feel like in the marketing world that over the years, no one's ever been able to agree on. And yet, we see clients of various sizes. We see Fortune 100 companies investing ridiculous sums in finding out the perfect attribution model, paying fancy software. And then the next day you've got someone else coming in and says, that's bullshit. That's useless. And I kind of feel like we've reached this point where it's like, is this a space that's just been overcomplicated? Well, definitely. But where's the point of diminishing returns? It's just a topic that, to be honest with you, the more I get to learn about, and, I've been in the space for 8-10 years at this point. I feel like I'm not more clear on attribution as I was many years ago. And then everything, as soon as people think they have it figured out, then, Facebook or Google changes everything, fucks everything up. And then people claim to have solutions, but are they really the right solutions? Are they really the accurate solutions? Can you actually trust people that are just trying to sell you a tool and claims that it works? I don't know, right? Like, that's kind of where, I don't know. I have a lot of conflicting thoughts and opinions about it. So does it bore me to death? No, it doesn't bore me to death. I'm just a bit tired of it.
I've personally,
maybe I should just be more curious, about it at this point. But it's just, yeah.
I think it's a little bit of intellectual masturbation, so to speak, yes. Because I think there's so many layers of complexity with both the organizational and decision-making aspects, as well as the technical limitations on it. But in my point of view, I don't think I've ever seen a company actually make better decisions by spending more time thinking about their attribution model or changing models or trying to get more complex. I've never seen meaningful decisions being made from those changes.
Absolutely.
And what's the point of an attribution model in the first place, right?
I absolutely agree. And I think that's why I did not expect to talk so much about that. See, and it's just funny, you got me started. No, you said it well, intellectual masturbation.
Okay, so another hobby horse maybe on the CRO space. Can you give me a true or false on this one? True or false? Conversion rate optimization is just a glorified synonym for A/B testing.
False.
How come?
I fight this every single day, with potential clients, with people that are like, hey, we're A/B testing. We're doing CRO. And I'm like, no, you're not doing shit. You install the testing tool, you're testing whatever Neil Patel tells you to test on his blog, and you call that conversion optimization, and now you're telling me that's not working for you? No surprise. No, for me, conversion optimization, or I should say, for me, A/B testing is a tool that we use as part of conversion optimization, but it does not stop there. To me, conversion optimization is about how can we make an experience more aligned with the customer, which in return will likely lead to positive outcomes like conversion rate increases or, whatever goal you're trying to get, right? More money at the end of the day. It's everyone's goals. But I hate this word because it really comes from the Fortune 500 clients that we work with, and I feel like it's such a buzzword, but customer centricity, right? Mm-hmm. Ultimately, that's what conversion optimization is about. How do we deliver better experiences that leads to more favorable outcomes for both the brand and the customer, and everybody wins at the end of the day? So if you're telling me that A/B testing alone, like installing Google Optimize on its own, will just do that, obviously I don't believe you, because that's not what it does. It's just, it's as much of a tool like HTML is a tool to build software. Well, not even software, but just, things. Yeah, it's a tool. You can't do anything without other things.
You mentioned, or you emphasized customer centricity, but alluded to the fact that has to align with business goals as well.
Yeah.
Is there a time when those things are misaligned, when something is bad for the customer experience, when people don't like what you're doing, but the data shows that it works? That's something that actually yesterday I talked to Mark Schaefer on the podcast, and he had mentioned there's sometimes a bifurcation between, like what the customer wants and what actually works. And his point is like, do what the customer wants. Like even if it seems to work, but I don't know. What do you think about that?
Yeah. So I think I do have a mixed opinion on this, whereas the customer doesn't always, that's the thing, right? For example, let's say, and I'll explain where I'm going with this, but let's say you're running like usability test, right? And you're getting users, remote or not, to kind of go through your site experience. And at one point you see that they're really, really struggling, but then you survey them at the end of that test and you ask them, was there anything difficult or whatever about your experience? Probably not the best question, but so you survey them. And very often you'll notice that you've seen that people visually struggled with maybe a step during checkout, but then they'll tell you in the feedback that no, everything was great. So something happened that, they struggled. They didn't even realize that they've struggled, maybe just because they're used to shitty web experiences. I don't know. But then they told you the opposite of what actually happened. So, the reason I'm talking about this is because the customer doesn't always know how they're going to act and what they need in order to act and what they actually want. And I think it is our job as marketers to understand what is, the conscious needs and wants of the customer, but also those subconscious needs. Now, so there is a line between what the customer says they want and what the customer says they need and what they actually need. I think where the line needs to get drawn is when we fall into dark patterns, right? Deception, anything like that. Obviously, it's a big no-no. Tricks, fine prints, obviously that is not just, going for the business goals. That is pure deception. It's going to bite you in the ass, either legally or on a customer service perspective or just public opinion perspective. My ethics don't align with using dark patterns or any type of deception. So I'm also against that, just as a whole, same with SplitBase as a whole. But I do think there is a fine line between, I think that is our job. It's understanding the conscious and the subconscious needs of the customer at the end of the day.
Yeah, I'm not a behavioral scientist by trade, but I think that from my reading, what I understand is that the big underpinning of that field is that there's a gulf between people's stated preferences, what they say, and what they do, right? Yeah. And is there a way to bridge that gulf with conversion rate optimization, with research? Like, how do you trust what somebody says if you don't necessarily know if that's what they actually believe? Like in the case of like political races, like a lot of people will say like, oh, I'm going to vote for this, or like, oh, this is what I care about. Then they get to the voting booth and they do something different. So it's like, how do we reconcile that in marketing and optimization?
I think that's the $1 billion question, right? I don't think anyone really has the answer to that. One way that we do it at SplitBase to kind of, and it's not like it doesn't provide a clear answer, but it helps understand those motivations, both the conscious ones and the subconscious ones. Is first, when you survey your customers and you ask them, what makes you want to buy this? What's going on in your life to go through this process? Or you survey existing customers and you ask, what made you buy this? What's important to you about this product? And you ask them questions that generally the answers are going to be the conscious answers, right? The things that the customers know and are aware of.
They're going to say stuff like price and the obvious stuff, right?
Yeah, exactly. When you ask, a range of questions, pre-purchase and post-purchase, right? You will mostly get, the things that they are aware of. But it's interesting to then take those things and then test it at various degrees, right? And I don't have like a specific example for you on that, but it's like, I don't know, let's say, and I'm not going to try to invent an example because I'm totally going to fuck it up. But but at the end of the day, it's like, let's look at what people are saying is important to them. And then let's test it and let's see, is it actually important to them? Actually, a good example is, charity-driven brands. There's so many direct-to-consumer charity-driven brands that are popping up. And I know one of the big question that's been popping up in a lot of the CEOs' minds over the last couple of years is, how important is it to the customers? They're telling us that it's very important to them, and they're buying from us because of the charitable aspect. But if they were to find a better price at a competitor that doesn't have that charitable aspect, would they still buy from us? Would they pay premium just because of our charitable aspect versus the competitor, right? And there's no clear-cut answer to any of the brands. It all depends on the actual charitable aspect to it, how much you advertise it, how much it's part of your UVP, and also who's your customer base. Are they a price-sensitive customer? Are they not, right? But that is a great example of like, customers are saying it's important, but are they just saying that because it makes them feel good to say that they're buying from you for a charitable aspect? Or are they just, and is that actually impacting their purchasing behaviors? And I'll be honest with you, we've tested that a lot of times with brands so they could better align their own brand with it. And for some brands, it made no difference.
You just remove the language around the charitable donations and basically nothing changes.
Well, I wouldn't remove it, but it's question like, how important is it, to the customer? And I would never tell a brand, hey, like, this is part of your brand DNA, stop talking about it or stop doing it because it doesn't help customers buy more. I still think, any brand or company needs to have like a social aspect,
that's one of those principles, whatever. those underlying motives for being in business in the first place. That's not usually subject to experimentation. Like, we're in it to do good stuff. So like we're going to keep doing that.
Exactly. And look, not everything is supposed to make the customers buy more. Like, that is the ultimate capitalistic point of view that, I think led to what sometimes people see as bad capitalism, because it's like taking advantage of everything, and it's trying to do everything for money reasons, and it's the greediness aspect of it, right? Like, not everything needs to be to make more money. I mean, if you're building a brand and you want it to, and you're only doing it because that might help conversions, I think and you want to do a charitable aspect thing just so it can help conversion, I think that's a bad reason to do a charitable aspect thing to your brand. Like, do it because you care, because it's a charity you want to help, you want to make an impact. Gives more meaning to making money, I think. But if it can help you boost conversions, great. But we've seen with some brands that it's like, it was important and customers appreciated that, but did it really make a meaningful difference in terms of increasing revenue if we advertise it more? Not really. Some other brands it did, though, by the way. Like, that's what I'm saying. Right. It really depends on the brand, on the customer, and everything.
I wonder if like the incentive structures that we have based on the data we have available, right? Like, if you're running an A/B test, you're running on pretty short-term data within the span of like 2 to 4 weeks, and like the proximate conversion. So not necessarily even like long-term metrics like customer LTV or brand equity. I wonder if like we're incentivized to keep spiraling down that path to try to eke out marginal dollars. And that coupled with dark patterns, I wonder, I don't know if there's even a bad perception of CRO, but like, I do think like a lot of people in the space have talked about like, I don't like it, but it works. Yeah. And, you just kind of like follow that thread line, and then you end up doing a bunch of stuff that seems not great for the customer.
Yeah. I mean, that's the thing, right? I think Sorry, so many thoughts. But I mean, yeah, there can be bad CRO and good CRO. Like if like that's the thing, right? Like if you approach CRO as like, let's make more money, who cares about the customer and everything? Like you're inevitably going to end up with like fake countdown timers and shit that, you know, is probably not in today's day and age ethical, because they're pure lies, right? Like they're not real. You're applying tactics that are just deceiving customers and creating false scarcity and things like that.
People stop trusting that over time too, right? Like once the secret's out, people look at that as almost a negative, like a red flag. So it's like you're chasing short-term ephemeral gains, if anything.
Yeah. And maybe like that sounds a bit woo, but you know, for me, it's like, look, like if the aim of your CRO program, like I said, is just to create a better experience, a less frustrating internet in a way, right? And like everyone is better off of it. Like if I go to a website and I can't get the answers to my questions about a certain product, I'm frustrated. I have to do comparison shopping. It's complicated. It's taking me so much more longer than I would want. And then the brand is losing because they might not get me as a customer because my questions are unanswered, right? But if you approach CRO like, hey, let's solve customers' problems, let's make things painless for everyone. And by doing that, we're going to be able to increase, you know, whatever business metrics. Great. You know, to me, that's like CRO that's not just there to gain the business, but it's serving both. It's serving the customer, it's serving the brand as well. And I'd like to think it helps make the internet a better place. I don't know, maybe, you know, but hey, that's what I do for a living. I do CRO, so.